Shut up and sit down.
I'm going to be reacting to a campus reform. Wildest teacher TikTok rants. Hey, let's see what this shit's about. Let's go.
Here's some things that you need to know about me. Number one, if you are a person of whiteness, I don't give a I don't give a about your comfort. I don't give a about your feelings. I don't give a about where you think that your place is in the world. You too.
That's an interesting take. Quite inclusive, might I add. Just keep going.
You too can achieve the American dream if only you work hard enough to conform to society's norms. And by society, I mean...
What exactly do they mean when they say society's norms? I wonder if they realize that society changes based on region, changes based on country. Now, obviously, she's talking about the U.S., but there are different viewpoints on a lot of different things depending on where you're at regionally. So it seems like a little bit of a generalized blanket statement. Not too surprised. They're kind of dumb.
Off the Fox News. Do your parents listen to Fox News? Most of y'all
Turn off the Fox News. Okay, got it.
parents are dumber than you.
Most of your parents are dumber than you. So I have a little bit of an issue with overstepping bounds of perceived authority, especially when it comes to people like this. I take great joy in contacting my children's teachers whenever they try to pull some shit like this. Our tax dollars pay for her to say that. Let that sink in. You're paying this person to tell your children that you are dumber than they are. It's insane to me.
Say that out loud. My parents are freaking dumb. Okay?
So right now, all she's doing right now is she's trying to create a rapport by bringing herself to their level. Most teenagers think their parents are dumb. However, you're still a teacher, lady. Most kids think you're dumb. I'd be willing to bet that most of your classes find you quite irritating. Stop trying to reminisce. Stop trying to make yourself cool because clearly you're the type of person that did not have a very good life in middle school and high school. You had a terrible social life while you were in school. You're making that painfully clear. Let's keep going.
The minute I figured that out, the world, okay? And the minute I figured that out, the world opens up. You don't have to do everything your parents say.
So we need to keep in mind that when a teacher says something like this, she's potentially opening up a Pandora's box of problems for these parents. And it's really unfortunate because genuinely, most kids are just trying to get through school. Some kids have a very rough life at home. And for this teacher to be paid tax dollars in order to tell these children, you don't have to do everything your parents tell you to do, she's essentially trying to create rebellion. She's trying to create some sort of misguided mutiny to give herself some sort of value. Again, she's reaching, trying to bring herself to their developmental level when, in all honesty, she's likely far less cognitively developed than most of these kids. I don't think they're laughing because she's funny. I think they're laughing at her. But let's keep going.
Don't have to believe everything your parents believe, because most likely you're smarter than them.
I have had my regular back to school anxieties. Things like, am I going to have enough time? Am I going to get my lessons done? Are the students going to be okay? But this year, there is this overshadowing apprehension that's clouding my normal back to school thoughts. And it's with thoughts like, if I die, who's going to take care of my children? And if I end up in the hospital, how am I going to pay those bills?
Wait. Is she talking about the children in the class, or is she talking about her actual children? Let's find out.
And if I give COVID to my students or my own.
There's absolutely no reason that any person should feel personally responsible if someone happens to succumb to what she's talking about. It's very unfortunate that people have been manipulated into thinking they are somehow responsible. I'm not going to go too much into that because I know there's not a whole lot of, not really allowed to say that too much. So I'll let you do the math.
I should ask any teacher how they feel this year, and I'm sure that they will tell you that they have never experienced anxiety like this, because it is like we are trying to protect our students from a mass shooting that we know is coming but cannot do anything about. Except
She's still talking about the same thing I think she's talking about, or is she talking about something else?
we can do something about it. It's just that not everyone agrees that wearing a mask will stop the onslaught of students and staff who are likely to become sick. And
I mean, it didn't. Let's keep it real. I'm sure something is better than nothing. However, it's insane.
that makes me sick. And in the meetings that I have been to since we've been back, I hear teachers planning like regular, but I also hear them having conversations about finding affordable attorneys so that they can make a will. And we're talking about making emergency sub-plans.
I mean, honestly, anyone with children, anyone with anything should have a will of some kind. That's called being prepared. It's crazy to me that people wait until their idea of impending doom to prepare for things. It's crazy. Let's keep going.
And quarantining and going to the hospital. And after, in my district, we found out that we have to use personal and sick days if we have to quarantine, and that those aren't paid.
They get a salary, I'm pretty sure. Now, I'm not sure if this is a private school, but I'm pretty sure teachers get a set stipend. In most public school systems, they tend to get a set amount for the whole year. I don't know if they dock their pay or what, if they happen to become sick more than normal. Not really sure on that, but it's a little crazy to be concerned with that if, in fact, you are paid a regular amount for the whole year.
Dialogue is how those bills are going to get paid. And we're wondering what legal rights we have, because we don't have mask mandates in place across the board. And across the board, we're worried. And we're tired of fighting parents who feel like mask mandates violate rights.
They do, though. Straight up. I'll never knock someone for wearing one. But just like wrapping it up before sticking it in someone, it's a precaution. You can either choose to take the precaution or choose not to take the precaution. You're a teacher, lady. I'm pretty sure you understand the ramifications of taking precaution and not taking precaution. You don't need to assume responsibility for other people's decisions. It's not your job. Your job is to teach kids, not worry about what parents are or are not doing. If the child is in imminent danger, absolutely. If there exists an imminent threat outside of the school structure, absolutely. Get involved. However, it's not your job to worry what parents think or dictate how they parent.
We want parents to know that we are on the same team.
I made a
Not always. Let's keep it real. Not always on the same team.
I made a comment on one of Miss April's recent videos about PBIS, in which I stated that PBIS is white supremacy with the hug, and a lot of y'all wanted to know more about.
If you don't know what PBIS is, positive behavioral interventions and supports is what PBIS is.
PBIS is white supremacy with the hug, and a lot of y'all wanted to know more about that, so
I'm trying to find out why more white people talk about white supremacy than anyone else. Sit down. If you're white and you're about white supremacy, sit down. No one needs your fucking help. Everybody can speak for themselves, and you're damn sure not in authority. You were not given the authority, appointed for anyone. You're white. Sit down.
here we go. First of all, thank you to Jack Copa, who reminded me that Dina Simmons was the first to coin this term, so thank you, Jack, so much. So if PBIS concerns itself with positive behaviors, we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, what are those positive behaviors? And it's things like making sure that you're following directions and making sure that you're sitting quietly and you are in your seat and all these things that come from white culture. The idea of just sitting quiet and
I gotta watch that again.
we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, what are those positive behaviors? And it's things like making sure that you're following directions and making sure that you're sitting quietly and you are in your seat and all these things that come from white culture. The idea of just sitting quiet and being told stuff and taking things in a passive stance is not a thing that's in with many cultures. So if we're positively enforcing,
You can clearly see this person has never traveled. I'm fairly certain in China, kids are not allowed to run amok in school. Same with India. Same with Japan. This is crazy. The idea of teacher and pupil has been around far longer than the factory model education system. I personally am not a fan of the factory model education system. I hated school. I did great in school, but I hated it. I don't particularly like to sit down and listen either. But when you're learning, kind of hard to learn anything. Kind of hard to be prepared for life if you're not reasonably paying attention. Kids can easily distract other kids. This is asinine.
enforcing these behaviors, we are by extension positively enforcing elements of white culture.
We are, by extension, reinforcing white culture. Okay.
Which therefore keeps whiteness at the center, which is the definition of white supremacy.
Again, he's white. He doesn't know a fucking thing. He doesn't have any idea what he's talking about.
This is an idea that I think
Here we go again.
a lot of people have, and I want to call that in lovingly just for a moment. Yes, America contains many cultures and many races. That is not wrong. However, the problem comes when we don't think about this idea or this argument in a racialized way.
The problem is that when you racialize anything, it creates a divide. If you attach race to everything that you're talking about, you're going to create a fucking problem. Are these people that dumb? He might be biracial, but regardless, stop talking about this shit. That's half the reason it's a problem. People keep talking about it. If you include race in every fucking conversation that you're having, of course, that's what you're focusing on.
Comes to power and power dynamics. In America, as in many other parts of the Western world, whiteness is the dominant racial ideology.
Whiteness is not a racial ideology unless you're making it one. Clearly, this person is making it one. Being white is not an ideology. Racism clearly exists, and what's starting to get on my nerves is the implicit racism that these people are projecting from within themselves onto the rest of society. I grew up with a whole slew of different types of people. When I was young, I lived in a predominantly black neighborhood. I was one of 3 white kids in the whole neighborhood. My sister, being half Hispanic, is included in that. Not a single one of us had any issue with anybody, regardless of what we looked like. We all played football. We all played in the street. We all did normal shit kids do. I don't understand what the problem is with these people. I genuinely believe most of these people don't have any idea of what it's like to actually interact with another race, so they have to base everything off of assumptions. Have you ever been invited to a black barbecue? I'd be willing to bet not. Have you ever hung out with a black person outside of work? Not likely. If you have, I'll stand corrected. But I think most of the issues we have is the lack of cultural experiences. These people blow my mind. To me, it's absolutely insane. It's complete mindlessness. Mindlessness.
So when we think of power in terms of race, whiteness has the most power. So while there are people of many different races and cultures living in America, the fact that whiteness is the dominant racialized power structure, that is the problem, and that is why we have to...
Shit's annoying.
Race in all of our arguments and considerations.
This is what's bullshit. Today is the first time our country has recognized Juneteenth. It's a national holiday, and yet I'm getting ready to go back to school in the fall, and my governor has put into place some ridiculous legislation that many governors across the country have put into place, such as I can't teach anything divisive, I can't teach critical race theory, and I can't teach about racial equity. This is at all public schools, colleges, and universities.
Do you know why? It's because tax dollars pay for it. We are your boss, lady. The problem with the whole idea behind racial equity is that it's being imposed with a false narrative. Equity is equal outcome, not equal opportunity. That's like saying someone who sucks at math is allowed to be a mathematician for no other reason than their skin color. The government dictating whether you can or cannot hire someone based on their qualifications is in and of itself racist. It's a racist undertone, period. You're saying, I don't think you can do it on your own. So here, we're going to force an employer to put you in a position you're not qualified for. And on top of that, they're not allowed to fire you or replace you with a better qualified candidate because you can't do it on your own. It's fucking ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, inner city schools have far less funding, and that is truly unfortunate, which affects their ability to hire quality teachers. So let's look at it like that. You take a quality teacher who's more than qualified, is not willing to work for less than X amount. How would that teacher feel if she was made or he was made to teach in a place that didn't have the funding to pay them? Or they paid all teachers exactly the same across the board. The problem with equity is its equal outcome. Meaning, this teacher and a MIT collegiate level math genius should be getting paid the same, regardless of qualifications, regardless of accomplishments, regardless of their resume, regardless of their education, regardless of anything other than the fact they're teachers. They're both teachers. It doesn't matter what kind. So pay everybody the same across the board. Then what? There's a reason why people specialize in certain things. The problem with equal outcome is that you end up with a disproportionate amount of unqualified people in the positions looking for qualified candidates. This, to me, I don't care what someone looks like. If their qualifications are listed and they are more than appropriate for what's needed, hire them. But no one should be told to hire a non-qualified candidate for a job based on the color, based solely on the color of their skin, based solely on race. It's ridiculous. I'm sure there's better ways we can do this. Don't set up people to fail. If someone's not qualified, they're not qualified.
So, teachers, in the past, we've been activists. After this show of last year, we really need to stand up and do what's right for our kids right now. So, this is a call to action, teachers.
Yeah, call to action. But look at her looking around and make sure no one's listening. This shit's sneaky. I don't like people like this. I don't trust her. She looks mischievous. She looks like she definitely would cause some shit. But she wouldn't cause any shit to your face. She would sit there and talk behind closed doors. These are the people you need to worry about being racist. These are the people. These are the types of people that do shit when you're not looking. Because they have preconceived notions and assumptions. They have presumptions about people in general. So while she's calling to action, she's doing so with no one around. Because someone would call her out on her bullshit.
We gotta stand up and fight for our kids because this is bullshit. We can't lie to them. Let me tell tell you a little bit about the population of my school. 51% of my students are Latinx, and many of them are...
I fucking hate the Latinx thing. That's not a thing. Languages across the globe have a feminine and a masculine section. Not even a section. It's just the way that they speak. The way that they speak their language is masculine, feminine. You're not going to change that. And by saying Latinx, you're completely ignoring the fact that these people have a language. And sure, one could argue that the Spanish Inquisition and the Spanish invasion is what created Spanish here. But it's not just Spanish that have a masculine, feminine side to the language. You're a teacher. Stop being ignorant.
And many of them are undocumented, and many more have parents who are undocumented.
So I don't have an issue with immigrants at all. I have no issue whatsoever. My grandmother's husband for years, the only actual grandpa I knew, was a political refugee from Cuba. By far the best male role model I've ever had in my life. Granted, he passed away when I was 16. But I fully support immigrants. But I don't think it's fair to immigrants who went through the legal process for us to accept immigrants who are not going through the legal process. Now, I do want to be clear, more people overstay their visas than people who cross the border. So don't get that twisted either. I don't have a problem with people coming here. In fact, the more the merrier. It's coming here, overstaying their visa, and not going through the legal process to immigrate here is what creates an issue. There's no paper trail. There's no way to know what kind of person this is. And I find that to be dangerous. It's dangerous. There are cultures outside of America that have far worse intentions than people would like to assume America has. I'm speaking from a human perspective, not a government perspective. That's a completely different conversation. Let's keep going.
So when they come into my classroom and see signs that say no human is illegal, they don't need to know who I voted for.
Let's make it clear, though. If they're there for an education, fine. I have no qualms with that. I'm all for educating anyone who shows up. I'm okay with that. But my tax dollars pay for that. I'm not okay with a person whose tax dollars pay to sit here and try to change their language to make it non-binary. That's not how the world works. Yes, you're in America. Yeah, you're free to say what you want. But when you have an agenda like that, there should be consequences. Let's keep going.
I don't need to tell them. When my black students come into my classroom and see my Black Lives Matter posters, I don't need to tell them. When my
I don't think anyone needs to tell them anyways. Racism exists, but I don't think it exists in the disproportionate amount that these fucking people claim that it does. This is crazy. I'm not going to sit and say that I know what it's like to be a black person, because I don't. However, I'm from the South. When I moved to where I'm at, I have heard racism more often here than I ever did in the South. And it's all closet shit. No one's going up to anybody and saying that, which in my opinion is fine. I would prefer people not be fucking rude. You feel how you want. I don't have to agree. But don't be fucking rude to other people for no reason. Racism obviously exists, but it definitely does not exist on the fucking level that these people are suggesting. Your character alone will tell any human being, whether you're going to be a threat or whether you're going to be a friend. It's crazy.
TQ plus students come in and see my pride flag.
I'm actually a little curious about the LGBTQ plus thing. I wonder if the LGB community in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, as well as in the 90s, if they knew that all of their hard work was going to be hijacked. Because unfortunately, as far as I know, the TQ plus community never asked anyone's permission to be added on to that. I've seen numerous videos and numerous things on social media that a lot of the LGB community is getting irritated because they're being lumped in with some of the super extreme weirdos. I don't blame them, but I don't know anyone who hates gay people. I don't know anyone. And if I do know someone, they haven't told me. One of my best friends growing up was a lesbian. We hung out all the time. I don't have an issue with gay people. What I do have an issue with is the alphabet army. And we're talking beyond the LGB community. It's an issue. And it's unfair, in my opinion. Although I'm not within that community, I don't feel like I have the authority to say that. But I can have an opinion. Let's keep going.
To tell them, because they know that I have used my critical thinking skills and have decided to vote for whoever is on the side of fighting for human rights. So no, I don't need to tell them, because they know that I am using the privilege I was born with to fight.
The American privilege. Let's keep that shit straight. You do have privilege, lady. You're an American citizen. You have freedoms here. Countless lives have been sacrificed to give you those freedoms. I would hope you would take advantage of those freedoms. Vote for whoever you want. But don't think because you vote for one side that you're somehow more virtuous than anyone else. It's a difference of opinion and nothing more. I find these people to be probably more racist because they base a lot of their voting off of presumptions. They're the types that absolutely will vote for the American government to go into another country and dictate how they operate their country. In my opinion, we should probably keep our nose out of it. There wouldn't be so many places in the world that don't like Americans. But it's people like this that create that. It's people like this that have presumptions, and they absolutely will vote to go to war. They won't go, but they will definitely send everyone else to go to war and fight for their beliefs to be forced onto others, just like they do here. They force their beliefs on people. And if you don't believe the same as they do, they will literally try to guilt trip you into believing them. It's fucking ridiculous. They're crazy.
Them. That I am an ally for them. So yeah, that's not political, that's human rights. I'm back in my classroom for the first time in a year, y'all. Look at my room. It's so lovely. I love it. They took good care of it. Hold on. God, they've taken such great care of my room. Somebody else was in here while I was virtual. This is a wall of, like, tell a story from these pictures. My students with their I am more than. I love these signs. Students against the camps.
take note of the virtue signaling. She really needs to toot her own horn, huh? She needs to let everybody know how wonderful of a person she is. Because behind closed doors, she probably talks shit. Just saying.
Look at this, you guys. I can't wait to be back with them in person soon. Looks like it's time for another teachable moment with Ms. Magoo. Critical race theory. Critical race theory is not teaching our white children that they are bad or racist. No, critical race theory is literally unwhitewashing our curriculum. It's teaching the history of this country, warts and all.
So, me being from Florida, I happen to have learned a whole lot, including the Spanish Inquisition, the gonorrhea that was given to some of the natives in South and Central America. I know where Columbus actually went. We learned a whole lot about Native American history in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama region, as well as who actually landed stateside first. I think the inconsistency of the education system in general is the issue. I've heard some crazy things people were taught where I live now, which is not Florida. It's not the same. We didn't learn the same thing. There's no consistency. Each state is responsible for their own curriculum and what they decide to teach. That's where you make a change. If there is some inaccuracies, fix them. But you don't need to unwhitewash because the shit doesn't exist outside of maybe your little region. Why don't you encourage actual research? Let them form their own opinion instead of agenda driving the way that they're thinking. These are children, not adults. They don't have logic like we do. Everything that they understand and come to understand is processed through emotion. Stop manipulating these kids. All of them. Let's keep going.
My posts really seem to get under your skin, and I highly suggest that you stop being willfully ignorant and start educating yourself. Some great places to start would be by watching the documentary 13th, the documentary I Am Not Your Negro, reading How to Be an Anti-Racist, and this one might be especially important for you, reading White Fragility. So until white people, and especially white men, start...
I can't stand that. White men. We'll cover that stuff in the podcast. I'm not even going to respond to that.
Stepping up and doing their part, these systems and structures are going to stay in place. We need to tear them down.
I'm interested in what exactly they're planning on putting in place. What are they going to replace it with? Tear the system down, which has already been disproven, that there's a racial system. I do know that there once was a system in place where laws were on the books that were absolutely racist and harmful to non-whites. I know that. And that's a sad part of American history. It's not just black history, it's American history. Same with the Chinese during the railroad. I get it. I'm not discrediting our history, but it's still our history.
So I have one of my students here, and I wanted to answer this. What do I do, or what do you do if you mess up and say Miss Roby or Mrs. Roby? What happens then?
Then I'll just say Teacher Roby.
What do I say sometimes if you mess up sometimes?
Teacher Roby.
I just say Teacher Roby, and then what happens after that?
And then I say it.
And we just move on?
Yeah.
There's really not anything, it's not a big deal.
No.
Do I ever hurt your feelings if you mess up?
No.
Okay. But overall, how do you feel about calling your teacher Teacher Roby?
Fine.
Is it weird?
No.
You're cool with it? What do you have to say for all the people who think it's weird?
Stay at the comment.
Okay, so a couple things. Number one, if you're non-binary, that means you are one outside of a binary system. So if the binary system is one and you're non-binary, you're still part of the binary system. Sorry, the logic don't work. Number two, how dare you manipulate these little kids? You know damn well that stay out the comments response was probably heard by that student from her. I would not be surprised if this teacher coached her ahead of time. That's the sad part. Stop pushing f***ing agendas on kids.
Stay out the comments. Let them know. Okay, Alana, I love it. All right, let's try this. 1, 2, 3, all eyes on me.
1, 2, eyes on you.
Good. So, like I said, a lot of people have a question because I'm a non-binary teacher. So, to my 4th grade class.
Fourth grade. And this lady clearly is pushing an agenda. You can identify as whatever the f- you want. The issue that I have is when they try to alter vernacular or coerce people to live in their circus and play by their rules. That's not how society works. Do whatever you want. Don't force other people to comply with what you want. You're selfish because your feelings get hurt. These are children. They shouldn't even know. They shouldn't know who you're dating. They shouldn't know who you're fucking. They shouldn't know who you're sleeping with. They shouldn't know who you're living with. They shouldn't know a fucking thing about you other than you are a teacher. Period. Stop pushing fucking agendas on kids.
You guys call me
Teacher Roby.
and y'all are cool with that?
Yes.
Exactly. It's that simple.
It's that simple.
Shut up and sit down.
Well, let me know what you think. Or if you have any suggestions on other video compilations that you want me to react to, go ahead and hit the comments or shoot me a private message. Or you can send them to my email at themansrite@gmail.com. Once again, that's themansrite, RITE, @gmail.com. Thanks again for stopping by. We'll see you later. I'm out.